If a woman stepped out on her marriage, the vicious, poisonous, throw her out and get he could spit on camera, you know. But in a man's position, as long as we get a paper from the mosque and we cover it up, it's comment that the woman is then bullied by the husband that she's not happy for him, she's not accepting decree, have you ever gone without, you're just like it's like, okay, I'm gonna now bully you into liking this and responding and fitting into what you need to fit into, or else there's something wrong with you. And I think on the, you know, for a woman who identifies as practicing and religious, okay, some people are in a position where they don't want to talk to a mental health professional and they don't want, so let's look for answers in the deen, because this is something that the religion brought, so I need to find answers there. Mm-hmm. And when you start to search and see, if you look up polygamy in Arabic and in English, and you want to see what the scholarship have to say about it, the attitude is less than helpful. There is a little bit of giggle culture. Yeah, the women get jealous. And it's not being taken seriously. No. And you realize that, okay, there is no one in the religious context who has my back on this. In fact, the way that they're talking about it, it's very surface level, and it stops at this is actually allowed in the religion. And of course, you know, the men have to be just, and of course, but we're not talking about it seriously. There's no nuance. There is no consideration for the woman's position besides, you know, sister, you have to be patient, because if a woman stepped out on her marriage, the vicious, poisonous, throw her out and get he could spit on camera, you know. But in a man's position, as long as we get a paper from the mosque and we cover it up, it's so seeing this dishonesty really around the conversation.
Dishonesty around the conversation. There's a whole lot here. There's a whole lot here. Okay, so I heard that somebody might not want to take and go to mental health professionals or therapists first. They want to seek the answers in the deen, which is fine. Although I still think a lot of people need professional help anyway, because so many times it's not polygamy that's the issue. The issue, they may have some underlying mental health issues or other unresolved traumas that have come about that have been exposed through polygyny. But there's not anything warranted ever to say, oh, when a person goes to look at the deen, nobody has their back on something. It's saying, okay, well, this is allowed, which it is. Again, when you get into the gray area, because now say, okay, yeah, this is allowed, but they're not asking about that. They're asking about practical ways to handle it. And you do not find that really, you're not going to find that in the fiqh. It's going to be like, this is allowed, this is how it looks, there's a lot of flexibility, so on and so forth. Hence the challenge. But when you go and say, well, nobody has my back on this, what's to have your back on? It's because you're hurt, or that's a challenge, or he just did it. I mean, again, it's permissible. You know, we all have our challenges and struggles. Life is life. You know, but now you get there, then you get to that point, and you make a statement and say, okay, if a woman steps out on her marriage, how the whole world, you know, snap on that. But if you're a Muslim, you already know that if someone steps out on their marriage, monogamy or polygyny, if you were living under an Islamic state, the penalty is death.
It's a punishment attached.
So are you equating and planting the seed of polygyny, which is allowed by Allah Ta'ala in his infinite wisdom, to zina?
Right.
You're saying that now, oh, a man just get a thing, cover it up. Cover what up? Marriage is marriage.
Marriage, right.
You know what I'm saying? Nobody's talking about zina, except the comparison that she indirectly made. That's dangerous. That's dangerous for you.
Yes. And it's dangerous for sisters watching this, and then they'll equate it to that because they don't know any better. See, I would have watched this and known better. because I've had to check a few people for saying it in my presence. On my worst day, had to check some people for saying that. Well, if you cheated on him, how would he feel? I didn't get cheated on, boo-boo. But they weren't Muslim either. And they didn't have the understanding. So then I could say, oh, well, you know, they don't know this deen. But when you know this deen and then you say something like that, better watch out for them flames. That's all I know. Be very careful, because then who are you leading astray with that statement? Who are you? Because some sisters, like you said, you know, there's mental health issues. Some sisters are just really hurting. They don't understand themselves. They don't understand what's going on. And then when they watch this, they go, oh, no, I see what went on. I got cheated on. He stepped out the marriage.
And when spiritually abused me by saying Islam allows it. And ain't no scholars got my back. Who are they?
Exactly.
But
that
you know
was the
what?
dismissive part, too.
Yeah, it is.
When it said, you know, oh, well, they'll say
You gotta be just.
they'll be just. Or it said, oh, but he has to be just and blah. No, that's not something you just skate across. That's not small. These are rules and regulations of how it's supposed to be done. So just because you're not happy with it because of whatever feelings you have does not mean that the rules aren't there, and the rules aren't there to protect you.
The law don't care about how you feel. And also, speaking to those that don't have my back, and I feel like these brothers, this and that, when you go to men and want them to nurture you and act like women, they're not going to do it. They don't know how to do it. They don't want to know how to do it. So part of them having your back is giving you the information and the Sharia and what is going on and what the Rasulullah Salatu Wasalam did and what he practices when he left, what he did not deal in. That is having your back. Because I've had some brothers have my back when they said, look, I know you're upset, but let me just break this down for you really quickly, sis. X, Y, and Z is allowed in Islam. And here's where it is. That's having my back. Now, I having my back is going, well, I don't know what you're going to do. I mean, I know what the ruling is, but I'm not going to share that with you. That's not having my back. That's not being a brother to me. And you know the information. And they also have to weigh whether or not how much talking to you is going to make your husband show up. Because they might say something to you, you take it, run with it, tell your husband what a sheikh said, you wrong and you did this, that, and the other, and he might not have said no such thing, or you might not have the understanding yet of what he was trying to tell you, and then the sheikh or the imam is getting met with conflict with your husband. So some of them brothers will not. They'll go, sister, it's here. I know this is not easy. They're not your mother. They're not going to cradle you, and they're not going to sit there and go, oh, honey, I know it's hard. They're not going to do that. But part of them having your back is sharing the information from Islam, not from their own nafs, not from what the fatwa they made up in their own mind. That's having your back, though.
For a woman who wants to put her trust in finding an answer within the faith, that's enough to put her off. This doesn't vibe for me. The way it's being handled doesn't vibe for me. So maybe I don't fit here again.
And I think it's very important that the woman...
This doesn't vibe for me. What? Polygamy.
All right.
The way it's being handled, secondarily, doesn't vibe for me. Again, we're not just talking about when it's done wrong. You have to understand, a person can put a disclaimer all day. You know, they say, you know what? Stuff like, you know, I'm not a racist. But these niggers.
Right.
Oh, this doesn't vibe for me? What are you talking about? I'm talking about polygyny. All right, and the way it's being handled, secondarily, doesn't vibe for me. We have to understand the speech and what's happening here.
Pardon the interruption. We want to share with you something that's very important, a project that we've been working on and empowering people with called the Polygamy Masterclass. I conduct a 4-part men's polygamy masterclass where we go through the 4 stages of polygamy. So when we're talking about the idea stage, the what to expect stage to transitioning, as well as the new normal, which includes a whole bunch of stuff in between here. All right, of course, including leadership and financial things as well. Now, I want men to check that out by going to polygamymasterclass.com. In addition to having access to the live courses as well as the pre-recorded ones, you also get downloads, you get access to me directly. So let's get busy if you really are serious about practicing polygamy in a healthy manner.
Yes, and in our Women's Polygamy Masterclass, we train on preparedness in polygamy
in addition to connecting with your co-wife and everything in between.
So make sure you go to polygamymasterclass.com for higher level education. Now back to your video.
Is given the choice. Is given the choice. And what I mean by that is that if a man wants to engage in polygamy, that's his right. Yeah. Okay? But come to your wife. Come to your wife openly and say, this is what I would like to do. Let's talk about it.
See, I want to interject there because there'll be some men who watch this and say, yeah, but I did though. I did come to my wife and I told her what I wanted to do.
And she kicked off.
Right? But do you have the emotional maturity and intelligence to be able to manage that?
Right.
Because if you don't have the emotional maturity and intelligence to manage your wife's response, no way on earth do you have the emotional maturity to manage polygamy.
Yes.
Oh, listen, first of all, I like that she brought a little voice of reason there because the main complaint thus far has been, oh, you didn't tell your wife, didn't tell your wife, didn't tell your wife. Okay, because they needed something to jump on, even though that's not necessarily wrong, but it's not best practice. Best practice, absolutely, to discuss it ahead of time, right? But again, it doesn't make it wrong. But she did say, okay, you got the brothers who have told them, and they still act a fool. But notice how you gave the sister the pass to act a fool. You notice that? Gave her the pass to act a fool, and if he don't know how to handle it, which again, he does need to increase his emotional maturity and everything else, but keep in mind, you're married, and married, these are two adults that are married. Both parties have responsibility. So if he comes to you with it and you take it like a baseball and knock that all the way out the park, don't expect him to probably come to you with it again or anything else and so on if he feel he has to handle you. You handle horses, you handle camels, you handle animals. We should be able to speak as adults between each other, whether it's emotional and sad and hug and cry and love, whatever it may be, we both have that equal responsibility. And as the man, they're absolutely right. When they say you need to be more, I think they say more than 1.5 the man, whatever they said. You know, you do have to be more of a man. You do have to be well-rounded in your leadership and your communication skills and the emotional intelligence, financial intelligence, mental, all of these different things you must increase if you want to succeed and be married to more than one woman because there are multiple dynamics. But that does not excuse the other person to do growth work on them as well.
Right, that does not give you a pass to go and act a fool and say, you need to make sure that I don't act a fool.
Everybody has to stretch.
We're all accountable.
Right.
Everybody has to stretch their emotional bandwidth, not just the husband. Everybody. Because if you want to be married, it's some crowd participation that has to happen with that thing. If you want to be married, it's not, well, I'm married to you, but you do all the work for the husband. It don't work like that in monogamy or polygamy.
You do the work for me and you.
And it's out, you know, I'm just feeling a whole lot of feminism vibes coming from it with the women and the women and the women. And I know they're women, but it just seems like it's a whole lot of feminine vibes where we're talking about Islam, which we know Islam is not unfair to either.
Right.
And you know what? Further than that, when you have deceived your wife and you've gone behind her back for whatever reason to marry again, and then she kicks off or she falls apart or she can't get out of bed and she becomes depressed and she can't look after the children, and then you cannot hold space for her, or you hold space for her a little bit, then you're like, no, you can't blame me for this. No. If you believe that you are a man that can take on polygamy, then it's taking on every single part of it, whether that is good, ugly, you know, you take it on, you take all of it.
Just like you're supposed to in monogamy.
Right.
Yeah. Very few men, let's be real, very few men are able to take all of that on, even in monogamy. Like really hold space for the woman as she needs in monogamy. And now you want to add another woman, that's like double the dose and double the manhood that's required, actually. It requires you to be truly more of a man and stepping into the role of a man. Most of the I love what our previous guest said about polygamy in that episode that we couldn't air. He said most of the men going for polygamy are actually just boys. That's what he said.
That's what he said.
That's what he said. And that is something that hits hard because it's not nice to hear, but it's the truth. Because when you're coming to this realm, you have to understand what it actually involves. It involves a marriage with a woman and all of that comes with, and bringing another woman into this space and managing what that new dynamic comes with, and then managing that monogamy, that single relationship with her. So you've got 3 management roles, and it's not a walk in the park. No. Because
just on this last part, do you have anything to say about the other part? No? Okay. No need to go into it. We already covered a lot of that. She mentioned that there are different dynamics, and there's more than 3. Matter of fact, I'll share something with you that we discuss and let brothers know, for example, in our Polygamy Masterclass. If you want information on that, polygymasterclass.com. But there are several different identities, and we'll come back to this where we at 1542. All right, this is what it really looks like. All right, so there's basically 7 different identities. You have the man, you have the woman, and then you have the marital identity. Then you double that, man and woman, their marital identity. Co-wife share relationship, and what that looks like, good, bad, or ugly. So there's actually 7 different areas when a man marries 2 wives. So
are in polygamous relationships, talking about it, jeering, like laughing about it, ha ha, hoo hoo, about it, about I got 2 wives. Okay, cool.
Never heard
you
that.
think you're doing it. You're giving yourselves high fives out there. But are you speaking with the women? Are you watching them behind closed doors? Because just because she's quiet, it doesn't mean that everything is dandy, right? Some women struggle to express themselves. Some women are to the point of depletion that they don't know how to express themselves. Some women have shamed themselves.
Yes. Or been shamed.
Or being shamed. So they're being quiet and they're holding it down. They're doing their best to hold it down. But inside, they are broken. You've told her, well, if you loved Allah, you would love this. You've told her that if you are a believer, if you have iman, that you wouldn't have an issue. Listen, turkey is halal. I might not like turkey. It doesn't mean that I'm deficient in my faith because I don't like turkey, right? And it's the same with polygamy. If I'm not down for it for myself, that's okay. It doesn't mean that I'm deficient in my faith.
And there's the distinction.
Well, here's the distinction, actually. There's a big difference between liking turkey and polygyny, all right? Now, you can absolutely, a woman has the right to not want to practice being in a polygynous marriage and all that kind of stuff. That's absolutely fine. She's correct 100% on that. Not the same as turkey, though. Not at all. Not at all. So, yeah, you can have your preferences, no question. Are most of the people that are attempting to practice polygyny boys? Well, what that says then is that the majority of women who are married in monogamy have married and are currently married to boys, those who are not men. Okay, what does that say about your choice in a man? That's important to understand because you had a choice in that marriage. All right, very, very important with growth. Anyway, say something now.
I just can't believe she made the comparison. It's not like a turkey, right?
Yeah, it wasn't the best.
Extra butter on my popcorn, but I don't want that. I don't know.
And we had to, Allah Ta'ala says in Surah Al-Ahzab, in translation, it's not for a believing man or a believing woman. When Allah and His Messenger have decided the matter, that they should have any choice about their affair. And whoever disobeys Allah and His Messenger have certainly strayed into error. So when it comes to accepting of polygyny, the distinction must be made on whether or not this is the preference that you want for your marriage, or you got a problem with the institution. Because what I'm hearing today thus far is the institution keeps getting bashed. And the man does something wrong, but that's that man is doing something wrong. And the word, for example, when the sister used, she said, well, he deceived you and got married behind your back. Okay, what does that mean exactly? Because it's just the simple fact of getting married without the knowledge of a wife. All right, that's already discussed in the fiqh books to begin with. But when you use that type of word, if you're saying the simple fact of getting married without letting her know first, then what are you saying about our Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam? Again, you have to be very, very careful. And again, it's best practices. Have the discussion Whether or not you intend to do it, have it so that you know where it is. You don't want other issues to come popping up, and now traumas from the past, like I mentioned before, there could be abandonment issues. There could be other trust issues. The parent might have done something. There might be abuse issues. There might have been all kinds of things may arrange themselves in a certain way that don't come out until now. You know, polygyny is part of the discussion. So have the discussion to work with that and heal if healing needs to happen, or at least to establish that connection before you get married, if that's a possibility, or early on in the marriage, whenever it may be, have the discussion.
But I have a question for Coach Nazir then. How about when people say, okay, it's best practices to tell your wife, but the Rasul didn't tell his wives. Isn't that the best practice? So what's the difference? Some will make that question, so we just want to give some clarification on that.
Yeah, no doubt, okay? No doubt, no problem. The best practice is also understanding where you are in society. They came from a society where polygyny was well known, it was already understood, and so on. So it was already well practiced. Now, that doesn't mean there weren't jealousies. We know there were jealousies even amongst the mothers of the believers. Right. All right, but we're living in a society, at least for the last couple of 100 years, where monogamy is being pushed as the norm. And if people study or get the book Public Vows by Dr. Nancy Cott, Harvard professor, she really breaks down why that's really the case. So we have this Disney princess syndrome. We have this modern woman stuff. We have this feminism stuff going on. So now this thing looks alien when in reality, monogamy is what's alien over the last couple 100 years, looking at the totality of human history. So it is best practice to have this discussion, talk about it forward, and to be frank, about it. When it comes down to when you look at Islam, Islam restricts marriage up to 4 women at one time. But Islam does not say those are the only people that you could actually be sexually intimate with. If you continue reading the ayat, it talks about your right-hand possessions, the concubines. Now, again, modern warfare is going to change that right now, where people don't have concubines, but they have as many concubines as possible. And think about it, younger men would prefer to just have concubines and go ahead and get married with the responsibilities that come along with it. So Allah knows what he created in men. So I'm not going to shame men or allow women to just shame men for being men or having a stronger desire. Oh, it's only about lustful reasons and so on and so. Whatever reason there may be, let's say it is just for lustful reasons. Allah knows what he created. But usually I haven't met one brother somebody, I need to marry this sister so I can go ahead and fulfill my lust and my desire. Nah, I haven't come across that. I ain't met him either. Now, do they exist? I'm sure, because there are predators everywhere. There are people who have been married 20 and 30 times. All right, there are serial monogamists, married, divorce, married, divorce, married, divorce, every few months. Okay, so those type of diseases exist in people's hearts, absolutely. Yeah. But we just being real with facts. All right, and being careful with your words, because your words can bring you out in Islam with that shahada and take you out and you not even know it.
And it's also creating or allowing that balance, because when you're so one-sided on it, you don't get to see the other stuff. You don't get to see the balance of the other things, because you're so focused on this one-track mind, or you have these blinders on.
Some people don't want to see it. That's the excuse to not see.
I think it takes a special type of man,
yes,
to hold polygamy down.
Yes.
Okay, where his wives are not simply surviving, but they are thriving. It takes a very, very special man.
High-level communication,
seriously. Emotional maturity.
Yes.
Mental stability. And a very, very strong relationship with Allah. And financial stability.
That not just a husband. Wives alike have to have that.
Got to work at that.
Everybody's got to do their work. Not just he going to get his work together and fix all of this that he caused. Everyone must do their personal development work, and development happens over time, not overnight.
And that's where the communication becomes, it becomes strong. The bonds become stronger and things like that, because the individuals did the work and they came together to work together.
And they can listen once their work starts. Then they can listen and see a different perspective other than their own. Like what would be very helpful,
instead of having discussions where you're just talking about how something is done wrong and what we're against, is how can we be supportive?
How can we ask the right questions?
What ways are the best ways to do it? Where can we go to learn that, and so on? And how can we begin that process?
What is a man who does that expecting?
I think what he's expecting. This is my honest opinion, and this is just my opinion. We're not sheikhs here. We're not saying, this is just a discussion. I believe a lot of men who go and do it in that way, in the wrong way, and there are going to be people that are going to be saying, but you know what? Sheikh so-and-so, and Islamically, you don't have to tell your wife. But anyway, that's a side point. Let's talk morally. You love someone, you would. A lot of these men do this with the warped, I think, idea that eventually, because this woman of mine, because this wife of mine loves Allah and loves her faith and is practicing, she's going to eventually settle down with it. But hold on, but what happens in that settling period? What happens to her? What happens to her heart? What happens to her soul? What happens to her mind?
And often she's dismissed in that. Like, you just get on, I'll just leave you to sort it out. You work through it.
You work through it.
He's not sitting there
Yes.
by her side, holding her hand. I know you're crying. I know it's breaking. Like, there's very little of that. You know, like.
Be real, I don't think other than maybe a funeral, I sat by my wife, and I don't think I just sat and held her hand in acting like a woman or a mother to my wives. We don't do that.
I don't remember it if
and
you
I
did
hope
it.
you don't expect that. Don't expect that from, oh, we're gonna hold hands. No.
This is the, and
That's
I don't wanna,
not what we do.
I want to speak to something really quickly. That it's not much that, there's much that has changed about, he used himself as an example, I'll use him as an example too. Since the time he was 16, as far as emotionally. So yes, that's true. He's not gonna sit there and hold your hands and stroke your hand. Are you all right? No, you know, and all this nurturing things, and Coach Nyla knows this, that a woman would do. But we expect it in certain areas, like you were saying, and I think it's good for us to speak on that as the wives. They go, well, we want to hear what they got to say about that. That's just what it is. We don't, it's not something, but that doesn't mean there's lack of care and empathy in a man's regard. They just do it differently. They don't do it like women do it. So I embrace the fact that, okay, it might not be how I would do it. Women might do things differently than the next woman might do. They might show, I'm not easily to show emotion in front of people. It's just not, it's not something that I do. I do that by myself. But I'm not going to down someone else that it's easy for them to do it or to show emotions or cry. I'm not going to go, oh, you'll cry, baby. That ain't me. Because then there's wrong in that. That's just how they process their feelings.
Here's one quick thing. When she stated, or one of the sisters stated about the men waiting, or eventually, well, she eventually settled down with it. She eventually, because I know she's practicing, because I know she does whatever. But then it said, well, what does that do to her heart and all these other things like that? If she's practicing, if she's studying, if she is working on herself and getting better, it's not about settling anymore. It's about that, okay, I see different things. I've grown. I've become emotionally mature. I've done these things. So it's about growth, not settling. So when you say that, you know, oh, she's practicing and she's doing these things, but here's the other stuff and she's still this. So are you being sincere in your practice? Are you being sincere in your study? You gotta, you know, so if you're sincere in it, the growth will come.
It's going to come. It's on the other side. It's right there.
One of the interesting things is that we have a lot of clients that let us know they got closer to Allah and became better Muslims after getting involved and have to do the inner work.
Because you got to refocus.
You know, so I would be curious as to how long they think it should take. You know, how long is healing supposed to take? What you turn 5 weeks?
Healing
5
is
months?
not,
5
healing
years? You know,
is not infinite.
because they saying, yo,
It's not infinite because we have an expiration date, each one of us. So you don't get, oh, you know, I'll heal in 10 years or, you know, I'll heal in another year or whatever the case. You don't know if you're going to be alive in another year. You don't know if you're going to be alive in the next second or the next breath you take. So time is of the essence. It really is, because we all know we don't own time. Allah Ta'ala owns time, and his time is not the same as our time.
Here are 3 ways outstanding personal relationships can help you.
Make sure you guys are following us on our social medias at Outstanding Personal Relationships on YouTube and Facebook, and on IG at Outstanding Relationships.
And make sure you sign up for our email list. And you can actually email us at support@outstandingpersonalrelationships, where you will get updates on our new book, Let's Talk Polygyny Uncensored, as well as exclusive access to our lives and bonuses.
Absolutely. If you're looking for more polygyny education, make sure you visit polygamymasterclass.com. Now, if you're looking for coaching or counseling with either Coach Fatimah or Coach Nyla, you can find them at.
Make sure you visit me at CoachFatimah.com.
And myself at CoachNyla.com.
That's how we can help you. Assalamu alaikum.
Peace.